Today we're going to discuss a weird looking and often overlooked piece of heavy military equipment, the AVLB. The Armored Vehicle Launch Bridge, or AVLB, can trace its roots all the way back to World War I. It was around this time that the world was introduced to a weird-looking metal geometric shape on tracks. The introduction of the tank forever changed the game on how wars were fought, and it didn't take long to find a chink in the tank's armor. I guess the enemy figured, well, if I can't blow a hole big enough to kill it, then maybe I can dig a hole deep enough to bury it. And that's exactly what happened. Just imagine how ticked off you'd be if you had this awesome new piece of armored battlefield technology, just foot to the floor, plowing across the battlefield full of murderous intent for 3 straight days at speeds slower than the human mind can comprehend, only to be stopped by a ditch dug by Private Joe Dirt on his John Deere. Clearly, this disrespect wouldn't slide, and after some trial and error, the first AVLBs were born. Since in my mind I'm a level 4 spellcaster, we're just going to time skip to 1963 with the introduction of the M60 AVLB. The M60 AVLB was designed and built by General Dynamics, who also developed some of the most effective vehicles in the US inventory, to include the LAV, Stryker, and M1 Abrams. Based on the M60 Patton, the AVLB is equipped with a 60-foot or 18-meter scissor bridge, allowing tanks and other wheeled vehicles to cross trenches and water obstacles under combat conditions. Now, what do I mean by combat conditions? The thing about an AVLB is that it's really meant to be used during a combined arms breach. To put simply, this is when we are here, bad guys are over there, and they've put a bunch of crap in our way that we need to get through. So now you're only left with 2 options. You can either full send your overly caffeinated tanker straight into that tangled up mess and hope for the best, or you send your engineers in there to sort that crap out. Well, because as engineers we all made poor life decisions, option 2 always wins out, so in we go. And if that obstacle happens to have a tank ditch we need to get across, then the AVLB finally gets to show what it can do. Now, assuming that AVLB hasn't broken down, was able to keep up with the convoy with its 30-mile-per-hour top speed, and hasn't decided to maliciously spit hydraulic fluid all over the crew, the M60 fights its way to the tank ditch, finds its launch position, then gets to enjoy getting shot at while it slowly raises a 30-foot high signal to the enemy for the next 3 to 10 minutes. Now, assuming all that goes well, big if, the M60 can then disconnect and leave the bridge in place for the assault force to push through. Yeah, so about that. That's also assuming the bridge is rated to handle the weight. See, the problem with tanks is to make them more lethal, they tend to get heavier. And not just a little heavier, a lot heavier. When initially fielded, the early versions of the M1 Abrams were closer to 60 to 63 tons, which was fine for the original AVLB bridges. But with the upgrade to the M1A2 and all of its set packages, the weight has crept up closer to 74 tons. Some sources even put the weight of a fully dressed out M1A2 Abrams at nearly 80 tons, which would put the Abrams way over what these bridges can safely handle. Now, for obvious reasons, this was turning into a serious potential problem, so the US government did what it does best and decided to throw money at the problem. Unfortunately for the Army, while money can solve a lot of problems, what it can't fix are the uncertain black voids that government contracts tend to create. For reasons unknown, the successor to the M60 AVLB was pretty slow in the uptake. Program development began in 1983, General Dynamics was awarded the contract in 1994, the first prototype wasn't tested until 1996, and the first production model didn't hit some poor second lieutenant's property book until 2003. That puts the total development from napkin drawing to first motor pool breakdown at 20 years. Well, I guess if you're going to take your sweet time coming up with a new design, then you might as well make it as different from the original as humanly possible. And with that logic in mind, I'd say they succeeded. General Dynamics yet again won the contract, and what they came up was the M104 Wolverine. The first order of business was to ditch the M60 chassis and its pitiful 750 horsepower V12 engine in favor of the tried and true M1A2 chassis. Not only did this change allow for greater parts compatibility, but it also meant the Wolverine could finally keep up in a convoy. Funny how doubling the horsepower tends to solve many of the world's problems. Take note, car manufacturers, let's make the V8 great again. But the power plant wasn't the only thing that got an overhaul, because the main party piece received an upgrade as well. Instead of the tried and true scissor bridge, the Wolverine instead opted for a sliding design. This had several distinct advantages, to include the ability to carry a longer bridge of 85 feet or 26 meters compared to the M60's 59 feet or 18 meters. But hands down, the biggest advantage the design had over the old scissor bridge was its low profile. Instead of sending a signal to the enemy saying, "I'm here, kill me!" the Wolverine is able to emplace its bridge as stealthy as a cheetah cat. Alright, well, all this sounds great, so why is there so much time left in this video? Well, besides the obvious of me trying to pad the runtime of this video so YouTube views me in a favorable light and hopefully one day showers me with lots and lots of cash monies, The Wolverine fell into the age-old trap of if it looks complicated and acts complicated, then it's probably going to fail some disgruntled E-Force preventative maintenance checks. Yeah, even though we like to think the military is some bottomless money pit, the truth is sometimes enough is enough and the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. The Army bought, paid for, and fielded 44 of these Wolverines to a few select engineer units and no more. It was just too maintenance heavy to justify buying anymore. So if the Wolverine was too complex and costly and the M60 too old and crotchety, there has to be some compromise somewhere. Well, someone at Big Army clearly thought so too, and they decided to breed a Wolverine with an M60, and through the miracle of life, what they brought forth to the world was the M1074 Joint Assault Bridge. Now at a glance, the jab bears a striking resemblance to the M60 AVLB, but in reality, it basically shares nothing in common. Instead of returning to the old M60 chassis, or even utilizing the M1A2 chassis of the Wolverine, the jab utilizes the older but still highly capable M1A2 chassis, which has been beefed up with M1A2 suspension. You following me with all this? I sure hope so, because next up for discussion is that bridge. While it looks similar to the old M60 AVLB bridge, it's actually a beefed up version that ups the MLC rating from 85 to 95. I am not about to get into what MLC ratings are. Just know that an MLC rating of 95 is enough to currently handle an M1A2 Abrams. There's somewhere between 75 and 150 jabs currently being fielded, with full rate production expected to be complete by May 2024, which is weird because that's time now and I'm still waiting on mine. Well, while you wait for the jab to manifest itself in the motor pool, why don't you get up to speed on the vehicles that utilize the jab, such as the M1 Abrams or the combat engineers that pilot this thing. Guys, you know the drill. Like and subscribe, or don't. It's a free country. Do whatever you want. CT6 out.